always know your why and let that serve as your compass in terms of whatever you want to do in the world, whether it's become a doctor, become the president of the United States, whatever it is. Knowing your why and letting that serve as your everything is all you need.
All right.
What's up, world? It's your girl, Malon.com, and I am a millennial multi-hyphenate, filmmaker, writer, activist. And today we are here to talk about being a Black woman professional, or just a person of color in the professional world, what it takes to get there, the trials, the tribulations, the peaks and the valleys, and knowing your why. We have a very special guest, Ethiopian Agonafer, who is an internal medicine doctor, super accomplished, super Black, super excellent.
Hi, I'm Ethiopian Agonafer, also known as Etsemaye. I'm a first-generation Ethiopian American, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm also an internal medicine doctor who's striving to make changes for vulnerable populations across Los Angeles and the United States. I was also the first Black chief resident at UPMC internal medicine residency.
So you've accomplished so much in your life, and you're young, and you're just kind of at the beginning of your career. But I just want to talk about what it takes to get there. And do you feel like, that old adage that you have to be twice as good to get, half as far? Is that something that you've experienced, that you've known to be true?
Yes. I grew up as a first-generation Ethiopian American. My parents came here, my dad at 15 and my mom in her late 20s. And by the time they met and had me, in the mid-'80s, disadvantages existed just as much, if not more, than they did now. Mm-hmm. So growing up as a kid, my dad always used to say, you've got to be 10 times better than the best. When you walk into a room, people are going to see couple things first. You're Black and you're a woman. And you don't look, you're not hard on the eyes. And so you are going to be, not taken for what you are. That people are always going to see you just for what's on the surface. So you have to be 10 times better than the best. My 3 tips for professional Black women are: first, know your why for everything that you do.
So you're actually the valedictorian of your high school, right? So you've been an achiever for a long time.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you had to fight against a lot of preconceived notions? Because I believe as Black women, as Black people or people of color in general, we have a lot of things. People make storylines for us, right?
Sure.
But especially for a woman, a Black woman, in the spaces that you are in, accomplishing the things that you are doing.
Right.
You're smart, obviously.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like people have kind of made a story for you, or how have you had to overcome the preconceived notions?
To be honest, growing up here in Los Angeles, I didn't really feel that different. I always grew up around people that looked different than me. I realized that I was a little bit different than most because of how hard I worked, and I was able to accomplish a lot, and that was rare for somebody that looked like me or came from a background like me, but didn't affect me until I left Los Angeles and went to Pittsburgh and got to experience a different sort of world that was less diverse. And that, really, as a resident and a chief resident, I would walk into rooms and become really cognizant of the fact that I was being just seen as a Black woman. While back home in LA, I'd walk in a room, and I also grew up in a community where people knew me since I was a kid and I was an achiever. So I'd walk in a room back then and people were like, oh, that's just Ethemaye. But when I walked in a room back in Pittsburgh, I suddenly felt like I was so many things that I wasn't. People were just seeing me as a Black woman as opposed to all of the layers that make up who I am.
How did you feel minimized? Like, what experiences did you have in that position where you felt, okay, some other things are at play here?
So I have several stories of where my skin color overpowered anything that, I was doing. I can think of a story once where I was in the ICU, and I was telling a family about the status of their family member. I walk in the room, and this little boy who was like 4 years old was sitting on his dad's shoulders, and he said to me, "Excuse me, why are you brown? And I was kind of taken aback, like, oh my goodness, is this the first time he's seen a brown person? And I told the little boy, you know, a lot of people like me were born this way. And he says, oh. And he's like, and you're the doctor? And I said, yeah, I am.
Wow.
But then so after that encounter, I talked to the family, let them know how their family member was doing. I walked out, and I really wanted to be around my colleagues and share that moment of, I wanted somebody to laugh it off with. And my colleagues who don't look like me, I went up and I told them what happened, and they all became really uncomfortable and sort of dismissed what I was saying and went back to their work. And I never felt more alone. That's just one example of how my color sort of left me feeling alone. But there were many other times, and it wasn't where somebody was calling me out because of my skin color, but more so that folks wanted me to speak on behalf of a whole race.
For everyone.
Right. Without realizing that, you know, my experience may be different from my colleagues or my patients or you name it.
Or other Black people.
Right.
Because we all have
different stories.
Right.
Second, be unapologetically yourself all of the time, and speak up when you feel least comfortable to speak.
Sometimes as people of color, we get to somewhere that our parents never got or our grandparents never got, these kind of uncharted lands. And there's nobody to advise you, and you kind of just feel like you're floating and I know I've personally felt in situations like I don't know what I'm doing and how did I get in this room, and I'm having a little bit of imposter syndrome and, you know, just feeling uncomfortable. For me, I experienced that coming from Watts. Even when I went to high school, I was in a very academic high school and I just felt out of place. I was always smart, top of my class, and I'm with kids who their dad is a professor and their mom is a doctor, and so they're talking about things way beyond what I was even interested in at the time. And I felt inadequate. And that was something that I used as a source of motivation, but I saw a lot of people around me kind of shrink in that feeling, a lot of people of color. So can we talk about how going into uncharted lands feels and how you can feel alone as a person of color?
Yeah.
You know, breaking these ceilings and breaking this glass, but you don't know what you're doing. There's no roadmap. There's nobody to advise you. You look around and you don't see anybody. Yeah. And you kind of got to trust your own intuition. So how does that feel, and have you experienced that?
I think you say it so well. There are many times where I feel alone, and I say it all the time, I'm just making this up as I go along. But when I sit in those rooms with those people that are not like me, I quickly realize that the things that are coming out of my mouth are oftentimes the voice of the folks that I came from. Those vulnerable people, those disadvantaged folks that don't even know that they're really disadvantaged or the world sees them that way. I'm always sort of taken aback by the fact that if I go back to my grandparents and think about where they grew up and what they were able to do and where I am now, and how amazing it is to be in the position that I'm in, so for instance, my grandmother, the only book she knew how to read was the Bible, and that was through sort of rote memory.
Right.
To be able to be in a position where I could sit at the table and say whatever really is on my mind based off my lived experience is so empowering. Because she never even dreamed of it. Right? That she would have kids that would then have kids that could do things that could really change the world in ways that we really never imagined. So sometimes I shrink in that moment where, oh my gosh, everybody around me has so much more, and I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know where this is taking me. But then I'm so empowered by where I came from. And the possibilities, and really, I really do want to change the world, in small ways and in big ways.
So 3 tips for making it as a professional in this world, especially as a skin folk professional. I would say, really care about the quality of your work. Anybody who is lucky enough to have a job or be working, you need to do quality work. So always put that first. Stay grounded in your why. So know why you're there, know your purpose, because there's going to be office politics, there's going to be things that are going to happen, but you got to stay grounded in yourself and your purpose and your work, and be yourself. I know a lot of times as Black women or people of color, we feel like we have to be somebody else, or we're performing, and that is exhausting, especially in a workplace. Be yourself, you're there for a reason. If you weren't there, something will be missed. You are valuable, you have valuable things to contribute, and be yourself. People are curious. Anyway, everybody wants to peek into that Blackness or that color, so use that to your advantage. Be professional, but be yourself, and know that that's enough. I always think of the quote, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Mm-hmm. When I feel like that, I remember how many people sacrificed and, are so proud that I can be in the position that I'm in. Mm-hmm. And, it would be kind of a disservice not to go out and chart that land that's uncharted. Mm-hmm. and get a little further for the next person.
Absolutely.
So I can give somebody else something, right?
Right.
So.
But everybody doesn't have to feel like that either. It's okay to be, so my sister's the complete opposite of me. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, Ethemaye, why? Like, just relax and do your thing.
Right.
But if you find that inner passion, that drive, then yeah, dream it, do it.
Right.
But if you don't, that's okay too. You don't have to, be Superwoman all of the time.
That's also important.
Yeah,
for Black women.
absolutely.
For Black women to understand is that you don't have to be Superwoman all the time.
Right.